The next time you're standing in the chip aisle, remember this. The bag that says 0 grams trans fat right on the front isn't always telling you the whole truth. There's a labeling loophole that lets a company print that exact phrase even when the oil inside still isn't fully clean. There are 12 of the most popular chip brands out there, ones almost all of us have grabbed off the shelf without a second thought. 6 of them, honestly, you should skip. The other 6 are the ones actually worth tossing in your cart. The problem is hardly anyone reads past the front of the bag. People buy based on a name they recognize, a shiny label, a price that feels right, and so they end up eating something they never would have chosen if they'd flipped the bag over. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which brands to avoid, which ones to reach for, and why the bag sitting at number 1 beats out 2 rivals that both cost more than it does. Stick around to the end because that number 1 spot might just change the way you shop for good. We're kicking things off with number 12, dead last on the list. Route 9 Value Chips. Route 9 is the kind of bag you grab off a gas station rack without even looking at the price sticker. And that's exactly the problem. It's usually just $1.99, sometimes less at a dollar store. But flip the bag over and you'll see partially hydrogenated oil sitting right there in the ingredients list. Here's the trick. Because the amount per serving falls under half a gram, the front of the bag is still allowed to say 0 grams trans fat. That's not a lie exactly, but it's not the truth either. It's a loophole the FDA has allowed to stick around even after banning partially hydrogenated oil from being added to new products. Route 9 is almost certainly using old stock that predates the phase-out, and that's why it's still legal to sell. On top of that, the frying oil gets reused far more times than it should, which means the flavor turns stale and slightly bitter the longer the bag sits on a hot shelf. That rock-bottom price sounds tempting, but it's hiding a genuinely outdated ingredient, and that's why Route 9 lands dead last. Now let's move up a rung. Number 11, Prairie Gold Classic. Prairie Gold is also cheap and also still leaning on that same loophole, but its overall quality helps it edge out Route 9 by a hair. On price, it sits around $2.49 at Walmart, and you can find it for even less at some regional grocery chains. This bag uses a partially hydrogenated soybean oil blend, the same category of oil that's technically banned from new formulations but grandfathered in through old supply contracts. The interesting thing is you can taste the difference between this and a genuinely modern oil. It's got that slightly waxy, coating feeling on your tongue that clean oils just don't leave behind. Prairie Gold's toughness to swallow, so to speak, comes down to trust. You're paying a rock-bottom price, but you're also eating an oil that health agencies specifically moved to phase out for a reason. That easygoing price is really only half the story, and that's why even though it edges out Route 9, Prairie Gold still lands firmly in the group you should think about skipping. Number 10, Sunset Ridge Family Bag. Sunset Ridge is cut from a slightly different mold. It's mid-shelf, usually around $2.99 at a regional grocery chain, and it markets itself as recently reformulated. The problem is reformulated doesn't always mean fully switched over. Sunset Ridge blends in leftover, partially hydrogenated stock to use it up before it expires, which means bag to bag, the oil quality can actually shift. And here's where things get confusing for shoppers. Sunset Ridge's label says expeller pressed, a term that sounds artisanal and premium, like something you'd find at a specialty market. But expeller pressed just describes the mechanical process used to squeeze the oil out. It says absolutely nothing about how healthy or clean that oil actually is. Keep that phrase in the back of your mind, because it's going to come back later in a much higher spot, attached to a completely different bag with wildly different quality. Sunset Ridge sounds premium, tests inconsistent, and that inconsistency is exactly why it sits in the skip it group. Number 9, Blue Ridge Snacks. Blue Ridge uses palm oil, which moves it away from the trans fat conversation entirely, but introduces a different problem. On price, it runs about $3.29 at Publix. Palm oil itself isn't banned or dangerous the way partially hydrogenated oil is, but the sourcing behind it is genuinely controversial, tied to deforestation practices that plenty of shoppers would rather avoid if they knew. Blue Ridge also proudly labels itself expeller pressed, the same phrase Sunset Ridge used, and once again, it's doing more marketing work than nutritional work. The chips themselves are fine. Crisp, salty, unremarkable. But you're not getting anything special for that price, and the sourcing story behind the oil is one most people would want to know about before they buy. That's why Blue Ridge sits just above the trans fat tier but still solidly in skip it territory. Number 8, Old Mill Chips. Old Mill uses standard soybean oil, the most common frying oil in the entire snack aisle. It runs around $3.49 at Costco in the big multi-pack format. This is about as middle of the road as chips get. No loophole, no controversial sourcing, just a completely unremarkable oil that does its job and nothing more. The chips crisp up fine, they hold their crunch, and there's nothing technically wrong with them. But there's also nothing here that earns your loyalty over a dozen other bags doing the exact same thing at the exact same price. Old Mill isn't a bad choice, it's just an invisible one, and that's precisely why it doesn't crack the worth it group. Number 7, Copper Kettle Original. Copper Kettle fries in corn oil, and at $3.99 at Whole Foods, it's priced like it wants to be taken seriously. The corn oil gives it a slightly sweeter, richer taste than the soybean oil bags ranked below it, and the kettle cooking style gives the chips a heartier crunch. But corn oil breaks down faster under high heat than some of the oils used further up this list, which means the flavor can turn slightly off if a bag sits too long on the shelf. Copper Kettle is genuinely the best of the skip it group. It's right on the edge, close enough to worth it that you could argue it either way. But it still can't quite escape the think twice category, and that's why it's the last name before we cross over. And those are the 6 brands in the group you should think about skipping. From the loophole-riddled Route 9 to the nearly there Copper Kettle. If you're still with me and finding this useful, drop the word crunch in the comments below just to let me know you made it this far. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate it, along with ringing that bell so you don't miss what's coming. Your support is what lets us keep digging into what's actually in your food. Now let's get back to it, because we're stepping into the 6 brands that are actually worth your money. Number 6, Farmhouse Gold Kettle Cooked. Farmhouse Gold fries in canola oil, and at $4.49 at most regional grocery chains, it's a genuine step up. Canola oil has a cleaner, more neutral flavor profile than corn or soybean, and it holds up better under repeated high heat frying, which means more consistent crunch from bag to bag. This is a solid, dependable everyday chip. Nothing flashy, but everything about it works the way it's supposed to. Number 5, Route 66 Sunflower Batch. Route 66 uses standard sunflower oil, running about $4.99 at most grocery stores. Sunflower oil brings a light, almost nutty undertone that plain canola doesn't have, and it's genuinely one of the more honest bags on the shelf. No confusing labeling, no loophole language, just a clean ingredient list that says exactly what it is. That honesty has earned it a nickname among people who pay attention to this stuff, the honest bag. It's not the most exciting chip on this list, but it's exactly what it claims to be, and that counts for a lot. Number 4, Heritage Chips Hand Cooked. Heritage fries in rice bran oil, a genuinely underused option in the mainstream snack aisle. At $6.49, usually only found at specialty grocers, it's pricier, but rice bran oil has a naturally high smoke point and a mild, almost buttery flavor that survives frying better than most oils on this list. Because it's so rarely stocked at big chains, people in the know call it the collector's bag, the one you only find if you're actually looking for it. Heritage isn't cheap, but the quality of that oil genuinely justifies the price tag. Number 3, Coastal Crisp Reserve. Coastal Crisp fries in coconut oil, and it's the most expensive bag on this entire list, usually around $8.99 at a specialty grocer. Coconut oil brings a distinct, slightly sweet richness that you either love or find a little unusual on a savory chip. It's a genuinely premium oil with real health credentials behind it, and the price reflects that. But here's the thing to keep in mind heading into the top 2. Just because it's the priciest bag on the shelf doesn't automatically make it the smartest buy, and that's a lesson that's about to matter a lot. Number 2, Golden Crunch Cold Pressed. Remember that phrase expeller pressed from a few brands back? Here's where the confusion finally gets cleared up. Golden Crunch is cold pressed, a completely different process that keeps the oil's high olelic sunflower base from being exposed to the high heat that mechanical expeller pressing generates. That heat exposure is exactly what degrades an oil's quality before it even hits the fryer. Cold pressed keeps more of the oil's natural stability intact, which means a cleaner taste and a longer shelf life once it's fried into the chip. At $7.49, usually found at Costco or a specialty grocer, Golden Crunch sits near the top of the price range on this list, and it earns that price. But it's still not the smartest buy on this list, because there's a bag right behind it that does almost everything Golden Crunch does for $2 less. We've made it to the top spot. If Coastal Crisp is the splurge and Golden Crunch is the label lesson, then what bag could possibly beat them both? The answer might surprise you. Number 1, Wavecrest Kettle Company. Of all the options laid out in front of you in the chip aisle, no bag delivers more value per dollar than Wavecrest. And here's the most interesting part, the biggest surprise of the whole video. Wavecrest fries in avocado oil, and it runs just $5.99 at Costco, meaning it costs less than both of the rivals ranked right above it on this list, Golden Crunch and Coastal Crisp. Avocado oil has one of the highest smoke points of any cooking oil available, which means it holds up beautifully under the high heat frying process without breaking down or turning bitter. It also carries a genuinely mild, clean flavor that lets the potato itself come through instead of getting buried under the oil. Wavecrest doesn't need a fancy pressing method or a rare sourcing story to earn its spot. It just uses a naturally excellent oil at a price that doesn't punish you for choosing it. That's exactly why Wavecrest sits at the top of the list. Not because it's the most expensive, but because among the very best bags, it's the one that gives you the most value per dollar. The cleanest oil, the most consistent crunch, at the most reasonable price. This is the answer to the question we posed at the very start of this video. The priciest bag on the shelf isn't the smartest one. The one that's most worth your money is. And with that, we've made it through the whole lineup, from loophole-riddled Route 9 at the very bottom to Wavecrest reigning at the top. If there's one lesson to take from this video, it's this. Don't trust the front of the bag. That 0 grams trans fat label can still be sitting on top of an oil that's older and dirtier than you'd expect, and the fanciest sounding word on a package, expeller pressed, doesn't automatically mean quality. Meanwhile, a bag like Wavecrest, priced right in the middle of the pack, quietly beats out 2 more expensive rivals just by using a genuinely excellent oil and nothing else. Shopping for chips, the smart way isn't about grabbing the priciest bag or trusting a label buzzword. It's about knowing what's actually behind that front panel. Now, I want to hear from you. Which brand on this list surprised you the most? Did you know about the trans fat labeling loophole before this video? Drop a comment below. I'm genuinely curious to know. If this video helped, you see the chip aisle a little differently, and you'll grab your next bag with a bit more confidence, consider subscribing for more deep dives like this one. There are still plenty of secrets sitting on grocery store shelves waiting to be uncovered.